Hey Kings, and welcome back to the Augustus Maximus channel, and today we are gonna go full Bukharin mode. We are gonna go full right opposition path mode for the USSR and No Step Back, which recently came out. It's relatively decent DLC. And I think the Bukharin path or the right opposition path, because you can also go with Rykov, but I think Bukharin is sort of like the figurehead. Nobody actually knows about Bukharin in the West, but or at least very few people do. But he's sort of like the main guy if you want to talk about the right opposition. He's Bukharin, obviously, the NEP, everything like that. And so yeah, we're gonna go with Bukharin today, and he's an interesting guy, both in the game and both in real life. He never was quite a militarist or an expansionist, very much a proponent of socialism in one country, so not exactly a world revolution type of guy. And because of the NEP, he was very much an ally of Stalin, but later because of the NEP, which essentially was anti-collectivization, and he was opposed to the collectivization of which was spearheaded by Stalin. When Stalin obviously took charge, he was very much against that, and he was much more of a, limited capitalism in the countryside for the peasants type of guy, very much of a economy focus, not really much of a military focus. And I think that's really nicely represented in the game, because you essentially get no military bonuses with Bukharin. You only get like production bonuses, efficiency bonuses. A very efficient economy is what this guy's all about, what this path is all about. And so I thought, why not lean into that? Why not lean into the theme, go full Bukharin mode, and not take a single province of any kind before the Germans invade? That means no Finland, no Baltics, no Eastern Poland, no Bessarabia, nothing like that, not even Tanutuva. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting challenge. However, I did decide that if you're not gonna take anything, we're not gonna expand at all. But Bukharin, in the game, obviously, his path is more focused around gaining bonuses from your alliance and gaining sort of an expanded alliance of communist countries that, other communist countries, not just Mongolia and Tanutuva. And so I thought, which country at the beginning of the game could we influence to go communist? And obviously Spain, so we're going to extremely heavily support the Spanish Republic. I also, the pre-game setup, set it up so that Portugal also goes communist and supports the Spanish Republicans, and the Spanish Republicans obviously go with the Stalinist path, which is in this game going to be the Bukharin path for some reason. But yeah, we're going to really support the Spanish in the Civil War just to make sure that they win. It's not exactly cheating either, because the Portuguese always get taken over by the communist republicans, and so yeah, it just means that it's going to be a bit of a. It's just going to ensure that the Civil War is actually won by the communist republicans, because in this in the new DLC, the No Step Back one, the Republican AI always loses within like a month or two. They just get trounced terribly, and maybe that has something to do with I don't know why, but the nationalist, the Franco path, has received an extreme buff. And I can see why, because previously the Carlists always popped up at really inopportune times, so I guess they just wanted to make sure that if you select historical, it actually goes historical and everything like that. So it's going to be a very interesting playthrough. We're not going to take any territory. We're going to support the Spanish extremely heavily, and we also go for the bloodless coup. We're not going to go for the Civil War, because as Bukharin, you don't have to go with the Civil War. You can just coup Stalin, you can replace him. No Civil War at all. That means, well, one, our generals are going to be terrible because they're not going to get leveled up at all. But two, it's, it just allows you to be a little bit more economic, more economy focused, not as much military focused, and that's going to be, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting because we're not going to do essentially anything with our army except for Spain up until the Germans invade. And we'll have to see how that goes, because sometimes in the No Step Back, the Stalinist purges can be a little bit random, or very finicky, so if things don't go to plan, I'll just have to restart this, and that's gonna be wonderful. And yeah, but it's gonna be very interesting, I think. Yep, denied. We're not gonna do any treaties with the Germans because, well, that just buffs them, and it does nerf us to deny it because we do gain an extreme penalty for our research speed, 75% essentially, if we deny that. But we don't necessarily want the Germans to have that easy of a time, because the Germans nowadays, or at least in this patch slash DLC slash version of the game, whatever, the Germans are extremely powerful. They are extremely powerful. They're very strong, and they're especially strong if they go Barbarossa, because they gain a 15% attack and 10% defense against, well, against USSR. And so it's gonna be basically the main focus, I think, of this beginning of the game, or whatever. The initial setup is just going to be, let's try and survive the initial assault, because I've had a playthrough as just the center, the Stalin path, a few times, and the Germans, they trounce you. They do like to trounce you quite heavily at the beginning. However, because you have such a hefty bonus for your military, right? Well, after a little while, you do gain a very hefty bonus as Stalin for your military. You can just push them back very easily. Essentially, the farthest that the German AI was ever able to push me, essentially, with the Stalin path, was just to the borders, on the borders of Eastern Poland and the USSR proper, the core territory. They managed to take the Eastern Polish land, but they never quite managed to punch through the proper Russian line. So we're gonna have to see how things go this time, because well, it's going to be very interesting, I think. But well, the Spanish Civil War is progressing rather nicely. Could have been a little bit better, but I do think we're going to win this one. And it should be popping up any second now, I think. The most crucial, yep, eliminate Stalin, the most important. Let me just save here, because well, I don't necessarily want to keep reloading the game just from the main menu, because yeah, this tends to be a little bit random. You do have an 80% chance of success if you do the correct focuses and do the correct decisions, everything like that. But well, it can get a little bit finicky if well, you don't, I don't know, have luck on your side, because the game obviously is a little bit of a, well, a little bit of an asshole sometimes, and even in this game, Stalin purged some of the best generals that we have. So it's going to be, well, it's going to be an interesting playthrough, that's for sure. But let's just see if old Joe, yeah, there we go, the death of Stalin, absolutely wonderful for us, wonderful for this playthrough, because that means that I think, yeah, it's basically just safe sailing from here, because I don't think we'll encounter any real purges here and there. But I think once you do that focus, the purges are almost entirely done, and yeah, so it's going to be safe sailing from here. Yep, the coup d'etat focus should be yep, and there we go. Beria seized by the army, and there we go, Bukharin's in, and we didn't even have to go for their civil war, and that means that we supported the communist Spanish Republic, whatever you want to call it, Spanish Commune, quite a bit. And so yeah, it means that we didn't have to focus on our civil war, meaning we could support Spain in their civil war and get an ally in the future. And I think that's just good. I mean, that's just good overall. Obviously, we can't do that as Trotsky or the Tsarist or anything like that, but it's yeah, it's a very unique aspect of the Bukharin path, that's for sure. And yeah, from now on, it's basically just building up and preparing for the Germans, trying to maximize our economic efficiency and everything like that. And we'll see how things go. Obviously, we did lose a lot. We did lose a lot of stuff, and for some reason, like the generals that we have, even though we've killed Stalin and Bukharin's now the only guy in charge, and even Beria's gone, they still have the trait cowered by Stalin. And I think that's an oversight. I think that's a glitch or a bug or something that Paradox just didn't think about. But yeah, Stalin's dead, and the generals are still afraid of him, which is, I mean, you know, you gotta give it to the man. That mustache would really scare me, even in the afterlife. But yeah, I think that's just a bit of an oversight. Hopefully it gets patched out soon, because that means that even like the entire Spanish Civil War, I was using Vlasov as the main guy. I leveled him up, everything, and then in the final purge of the final Stalin purge, he gets cowered by Stalin, eliminating all of his good stats. Now that just sucks. Look at this. Like, yeah, he's still, like, even this guy still has the trait Stalinist, even though Stalin's gone? Like, what does that mean? Isn't that, like, look at that, Stalinist. It's just, I mean, whatever. It's gonna be, hopefully it gets patched or something, because that one's just, yeah, that's just not very good, is it? Yeah, it's gonna make things a little bit more difficult for us. Here come the Germans knocking with an interesting treaty, yeah, I don't think so. It's interesting just how much of a debuff it is for the Soviets to deny all of the treaties from the Germans. Like, you lose research speed, you lose political power, you lose everything, and it's really it's really strange. It's really strange, especially if you change the government, especially if you change your leader. Like, sure, you know, these sort of things would be quite out of character for Stalin not to take like Eastern Poland and everything. But for like Bukharin, I can totally see him being like, yeah, no, I don't really think so. I don't really think so. We're doing socialism in one state, and it's our state. And your aggressive expansion isn't aligned with our ideals, or something like that. Just something, you know. It would have been kind of a unique aspect for the Bukharin path. But yeah, Jose Diaz at least is on our side, and we'll see how far we can take it. The International Revolutionary Marxist Center. Now, isn't that just the most wonderful name you have ever seen? So long. Why not something, I don't know, why not just shorten it to the IRMC or something like that, right? The International Revolutionary Marxist Center. It's just the most convoluted faction name ever. Well, not quite, you know, there's quite a few faction names that are completely stupid, but you could have given it something, I know, just a little bit more catchy, or I don't know, or is it just, what about just the International Marxist Center? Why does it have to be the International Revolutionary Marxist Center? It's just a little bit strange, that's for sure. And here come the Germans. Now, this is going to be very interesting, because the state of the USSR when it comes to the military, especially with Bukharin in the helm, and especially with Stalin purging some of our best generals, it's well, this is going to be very interesting. But with the production cost reduction, you can spam out a lot of troops. You can spam out a lot of troops because you have a lot of guns, and they can actually be relatively decent troops. However, my main focus in this campaign is just to hold the Germans back. Just to hold them back. I really don't want them punching through, because it's a relatively narrow front compared to what you usually have, and the sort of leeway that you have with the Baltics and Eastern Poland and Bessarabia and everything like that. You usually have a lot more leeway before they hit your core territory. And however, this time we obviously don't have that. We are defending the core Soviet territory, and so my main focus in this campaign is just to build a wall out of simple, 20 width, just infantry with recon support companies and artillery support companies. That's the only focus. That's the only focus of my entire campaign right here. I think, actually, maybe I'll get rid of this one, because while it does support the entire alliance's sort of defense on core territory and everything like that, actually we have green air. That's very nice, probably because of all the, production efficiency. We can actually get a very relatively decent air force out, and that's it's a relatively big bonus. But the main issue with the USSR's military state before you get into a war with any sort of major nation is that you have all of the debuffs, not from the purge, but your Red Army just sucks at the beginning, and before you can fully reform them, you have to be in a war with a major nation. Italy, Germany, the United Kingdom, USA, Japan, all of those count, essentially. France also. And so, before we can really reform the army, it's not as simple as beforehand. We just, I don't know, attack Finland or attack Xinjiang or kick out Mongolia and attack them and then gain lessons from the war. You only gain lessons from the war after you do desperate measures, and desperate measures can only be activated by being in a war with a major country. And then the desperate measures, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really do anything, or not that much. It doesn't really give you like defense or attack bonuses, anything like that. And that's activated for a year, so even though the Germans attacked, we can only reform our army essentially after a year of this, of just defending, which is historical, that's for sure. But it's well, maybe the Trotsky path has a little bit of a different take on the whole situation, but because we essentially didn't have a civil war, nothing like that, we just have this thing going for us. Well, the Bukharin bonuses for like core defense and everything like that, it's gonna help, that's for sure. It's gonna help because the Germans are stupidly overpowered right now, and so while we do have green air, our armies are not exactly elite. It's we don't have any tanks. I just want to focus on just stopping the Germans in their tracks. I just wanted to stop the Germans. I don't want them getting in. I don't want them getting through because our I don't know. I just want to stop them because I can I've seen a couple of times how far the Germans can push and how much of a bonus they do gain at the beginning. They can, and because Moscow is so close by, and because we don't necessarily want them getting any resources, nothing like that. We want to essentially grind down the Germans. Essentially, you could say that we created sort of a World War I Western Front type of situation right here, because even if they manage to take a couple of tiles, they probably won't take a lot of them. And the Bukharin bonus for defense on core territory is going to last basically until we manage to get lesser from the war. And so hopefully that stops them. But the Western allies have done exactly nothing really to help, and I like that. I like that the Germans are much stronger right now, because even though it's going to be a bit of a pain right now, and they're not only they're much stronger. The allies can't really do much against them, but that's cool because the Germans beforehand used to just lose in a matter of well, just almost immediately, and they're probably not going to do any of that. Probably just going to go for desperate measures right here, yeah. And yeah, so we'll see how things go, but I'm happy that they haven't punched through yet. And for some reason, Romania wasn't in the war, so let's just declare on them, and let's see how things progress. Okay, so 2 years later, nothing's going on. Essentially, you can see that while our generals are absolutely insane at this point, extremely beefy, leveled up to insane levels, and that's great. That's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, because the Germans are so strong, they actually managed to push into Spain, which was something that I didn't really expect. What I expected to happen was that, sure, they're gonna attack us, and we're gonna maybe defend for a while, maybe lose a province or two. That just happens because Western Russia is really terribly, it's terrible for defense. You can easily attack into it because of the plains. Before you hit the marshes, there's a lot of plains. Especially in Ukraine, it's sort of easy to punch through that. But I sort of expected the Spanish to, more or less liberate France for me, because the Spanish, especially the communistry for Spain, can actually gain a lot of good bonuses, a lot of good army bonus, a lot of everything that's relatively decent, and it doesn't really look that way. They managed to hold them back, probably because of all the mountains and everything like that. But as you can see, it's quite a war. We in the in like relentless attacks and defenses and everything like that. Both our troops and the US and the German troops are just spent. We have lost so much equipment. It's unreal. We have lost an insane amount of manpower. And it's basically just recreating the Western Front of the First World War. We just deeply entrenched both sides, and their attacks fail, my attacks fail. I'm sort of hoping that the Western Allies are going to do something. They managed to push into Italy a little bit, but even in the Balkans, we're just struggling, and that's partially because I mostly focused on just like this well, not exactly the most elite troops, but usually back in the day, like a week ago, even if you build this kind of an army and the Germans attack, do you usually, defend for completely successfully defend for like a month, maybe 2 months at most, and then you just click the attack button and just roll them all the way back to Berlin. That's usually how things went. But here you can see that yeah, things aren't progressing as they usually would in the old versions of the game, and we actually are, well, we're struggling to push them back. We can easily defend, they can easily defend, and that's basically where it's at. It's quite brutal, that's for sure. But I think that has the Bukharin path in any way shaped this run? Yes, it has, because of the bonuses that we got, both economic bonuses. We were able to gain green air, we were able to put out an insane amount of guns, we were able to support the Spanish more meaningfully than not. Maybe actually that's why the Spanish actually managed to defend or hold back both the Vichy French and the Germans, is that because of the core defense bonuses, was like 15 defense, 15 attack on core territory. That's maybe, and that's probably why the Spanish were actually able to hold them back, and that's why we were able to hold them back for so long initially, before we got lessons of war, before we actually managed to reform the Red Army, before our generals actually ranked up. Because of all the Bukharin bonuses and his production efficiency and everything like that from the advisor that you get exclusive with the right opposition path, it really helped quite a bit. Now, with Stalin, you get sort of an alternate, you get a lot of alternate bonuses, plus you get, well, you get, if we didn't lean so heavily into Bukharin, I don't think we would have gotten those bonuses on time, because I essentially didn't even touch the Comintern path, which allows you to do the ultimatums to for Bessarabia, the Baltics, Finland, everything like that. I didn't even touch that, and so it well, yeah, it's leaning fully into Bukharin, leaning fully into the economic bonuses and everything like that you get with him, did actually help us defend quite a bit, because our generals were trashed. Stalin purged all the good generals. We were left with nothing, and even the nothing, the few good generals that we had, good quote-unquote, just standard generals, nothing too special, were covered by Stalin, even though Stalin was dead. So the game just wasn't really happy that we're doing this, I guess, but worked out. At least we didn't lose. Hey, that's a big upside. And the Spanish, leaning into the Spanish Civil War and helping them, was it good? Was it bad? Well, it did help quite a bit, because well, it's essentially they functioned as a Western front for quite a while. And you can see the United Kingdom is pushing into Italy, but they're having a terrible time of it. The Germans and the Axis in general are insanely powerful right now, because they're essentially fighting in Italy, they're fighting in Spain, they're fighting in the Balkans, they're fighting against on the Eastern Front, and yet they're still holding back. They're still holding all of us back. They're still attacking relentlessly, and that's just well, if the Germans were overpowered before, if they weren't overpowered before, they're definitely overpowered now. But I think that's good, because in previous versions of the game, beating Germany was just sort of kind of basic, wasn't really all that much of an issue, especially not for the USSR. So I really appreciate these changes. Alright, here we go. What a war. What an absolute bloodbath. The Germans are about to capitulate. Look at those casualty numbers. Absolutely disgusting. But it also showcases just how, well, not pointless, but kind of weak the Western allies are right now, because the Germans got a big buff. The Soviets got a giant rework, but the Western allies just kind of didn't get anything. Well, they got Poland, but Poland capitulates like nothing if controlled by the AI, right? So the Bukharin path, I really liked it. It was a very unique experience, especially this type of challenge where you sort of try and roleplay as the leader. What would have Bukharin done? It's just kind of get into the mindset of it. Obviously, if we went with just a bloodless coup, ignored the civil war, ignored Spain, gone for the Baltics, taken Eastern Poland, everything like that, would have been just a standard Soviet game. But because we didn't, because we sort of role-played it a tiny bit. I think it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the Bukharin path. You really get a lot of good economic bonuses, but you get almost nothing for the military. You have like no military bonuses whatsoever, as opposed to the Stalin path, where yeah, initially it's terrible. Initially the Germans do push you back a little bit, but then you just steamroll them with insane military bonuses. Like Stalin becomes like the most insane leader ever in 1942, 1943. And you just roll the Germans back all the way to fucking Berlin. It doesn't matter. And so this time, because we were mostly focused on like just production efficiency, everything, like we were able to maintain a very good level of just equipment and airplanes and everything like that. We were suffering essentially no equipment deficits, bar, you know, sometimes right after in the tank, obviously. But yeah, it was, and we were of course able to supply constantly Spain and everyone like that with equipment. Even during the Civil War, I dumped like 30,000 guns in Spain like every month, just because I wanted to. And so, and the Spanish also a great help. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah, the Bukharin campaigns, it's a lot of fun. However, is it stronger than the Stalin path? This is what you have to ask yourself. Is it stronger than the Stalin path? No, it's not stronger than the Stalin path. The Stalin path is still better. The center is still better because it just gives you more stuff. Stalin's just better than Bukharin, and Bukharin's more of a fun path, I guess. And yeah, thanks guys for watching. Thanks Kings for watching, and see you next time.